Hey, Rick,
Hey, Megan.
it's Wednesday.
It is.
It was supposed to be Tuesday. I appreciate your flexibility. It is now Wednesday,
Mhm.
and we are here to discuss part two, as promised, as
Yep.
why there is not going to be a housing bubble burst.
Mhm.
And last week, just to refresh everyone's memory, you can find all of our previous talks on YouTube, Spotify. We post them on Facebook and Instagram. They're pretty much everywhere. So just to refresh your memory, this is part two of why there's not a housing bubble. And last week we talked about inventory, the amount of homes for sale. So if you know the basic rules of supply and demand, then you understand that there is not enough supply, not even close, to serve all the needs of people who are looking to purchase a home. And if we added the supply at the pace that we're adding it now, the experts say by 2024, we'll have enough homes for sale to pretty much break even. So 2024, a lot of things can happen between now and 2024. So it's nice to have a forecast, but as we've seen in the last 3 years, you just never know what in the hell is going to happen. So
Yeah.
carpe diem, I say, seize the day. If you have an opportunity, take it, right?
Exactly
So
right.
today we're going to talk about what's different between the increase of housing value now as compared to 2007 and why those are not the same. And then we're going to also just touch on some things that, like I told you, I saw in the news that the feds are going to raise the interest rates a half a point, 2 more times this year. And we're going to talk about how and why and if that matters to us right now. So let's talk about the first part, which is why this increase and this fever of housing,
Mhm.
the values and everything are not equal to 2007. You tell me your take on it, and I'll tell you a little story.
Yeah, thanks. So, we get that question a lot. People think we're in a housing bubble, it's going to crash, all those things. We hear that. I get it. But you have to look at the difference between now and the period between 2006 and 2008. In the 4-year period, Megan, running up to that recession we had, most of the loans that were being done during that time period were the quote unquote stated income loans, where there was no verification of income or really even assets to qualify or make the mortgage. And so when that housing crash began, Freddie and Fannie discovered that about 35% of the borrowers who were buying homes during that 4-year period prior to that never really qualified to make the payment.
So let's pause on that for 1 second. So those were the days where you didn't have to provide any kind of income qualification. So they'd call those no doc loans, right? Like no documentation.
Pretty
And
much.
and they would even start people out, experienced on a teaser rate of like a 1%.
Yeah,
And by year 3, their rate would be 5%.
much higher.
Yeah. And so your payment would go from $1,500 a month to $4,000 a month.
Right.
And loan officers back then were selling people on, well, you can refi out of that before it hits that astronomical rate. And what had happened was between the time they closed and by the time they thought they could refi, this stuff had hit the fan and they could absolutely not refi. People were getting their HELOC shut down and their carpet pulled out from underneath them pretty quick.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But you also, those were very bad loans, that 1% start rate, teaser rate loan. But even beyond that, if you think about the math behind it, if someone's income to qualify for a mortgage is, say, $7,000 a month, they have to make that much money to qualify, but they only make $5,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But then they say on the application, no, I'm really making $7,000. Well, at some point in time, their income is not enough to make that payment. And they go, wait a minute, I'm kind of messed up on this. I can't make the payment. And now they're looking for relief.
Right.
So when you have really, a third of the buyers in that situation, now they've got to kind of sell. And that's what created that housing bubble. All the homes coming in the market, all the short sales, foreclosures, and so on. So after that happened, along comes Dodd and Frank, our friends in Congress, who wrote the rule book on how lenders can do loans going forward. Dodd-Frank Act is what it is. So since that time period, every buyer who has purchased a home actually qualified for the mortgage. Okay, so they verified income, assets, and ability to make the payments to get the loan.
Right.
And so that's why we don't have this housing inventory right now, because they're not in distress. No one's in distress. If you look at the housing numbers nationwide now, in terms of foreclosures and people who are not making their mortgage payments, they're really at all-time lows. So for example, the number of home buyers or homeowners who are 30 days behind on their mortgage right now is at about 3.6, 3.8%. That's really very low. The bigger number, however, is the home buyers or homeowners who are at 90 days late, which means they're really in trouble, is about 1.6%. That's at an all-time low.
Yeah.
The number of foreclosures in the market is at decades low. Okay, so one of the lessons that we learned in this last housing recession was that now lenders are not so fast. If someone gets into trouble, they're not so fast to go to foreclosure. We're going to give those homeowners 18 different ways to make up that payment, to be in forbearance, to have some workout agreements, and so on. And so they really got about 18 to 24 months nowadays to work something out before they have to go to foreclosure. So what's the worst case scenario? They have to go to foreclosure. Okay, that happens. Guess what? They've got tons of equity.
Right.
Let they sell their house, make their whatever they have equity in the house, and move on down the road.
Exactly.
So we're not going to be in a housing bubble. It's just not
right. Well, and here's a fact from this week's reports on housing from Stephen Thomas, and it says that distressed homes, both short sales and foreclosure, only make up 0.1% of the listings, and that there's 2 foreclosures and 1 sale available in all of Orange County. That's of this week. And so says last year there were 14 total distressed homes on the market, similar to today. So there's just no indication that the sky is falling. People have locked in their interest rates. They're at 2% and 3%. Those people are never going anywhere. They're never going to let go of those. So, the whole point is that you just really waiting around. Poor buyers. I know it's been very emotional couple of years. It's exhausting. And the thing of it is that sometimes people get really burnt out on things because it just isn't happening. And so they figure that they're just going to pause and kind of see what happens. But I don't see pausing and waiting of any benefit to anyone in this market. Agreed.
I tell borrowers that in this market, time is not their friend. It's just not. I mean, it's only a normal reaction to say, well, let me write this out and see what happens. And you and I can both attest at the moment that we've got buyers over the last year or two that said the same thing last summer. Right. And now what are they dealing with? Higher rates and $200,000 higher in housing prices. And so how'd that work out? Not too well, right? Not too good. I feel bad for those borrowers and those buyers. I do. But this is the market we're in. Time is not their friend. And if they can find a house now is the time. Agreed. Let's talk about one more thing before we go. And that is that I told you how I caught a tiny little glimpse of the news, and they said, oh yeah, the Fed's meeting 2 more times this year. And I hear people tell me that all the time when they're asking me about the housing market, and they say, well, the Fed's meeting 2 more times this year. And it's like they're telling me something that I don't already know. And I already know it. And can you explain how we are already prepared for this? So the topic of the Fed is front and center for everybody in the financial world. Okay, so the markets anticipate the Fed movement well in advance of that date. So I can almost assure you that right now that on the next meeting in June, there's going to be a 50 basis point rate hike. Okay, so guess what? The market already anticipates that. And the market's already kind of priced that into the market. And so it's important to know that there's 2 things I think that are really important to know. When the Fed makes that announcement, for the people in the financial world, that's old news now. Now the focus is the next meeting, right? The challenge we have from a consumer perspective is that the media hypes it up. It's all over the world news, the national news, the local,
Right.
they raise the rates. So what? We knew that was coming. It's not that big a deal. It's honestly not that big a deal. And by the way, it's overall, it's healthy for the economy.
Right.
Because by raising those rates a little bit, okay, we're gonna at some point drive the rates back down. You have to cool off the economy. What we have to look at is not so much the Fed hikes, is what's going on with the with inflation.
Mhm.
The key number here to watch for is inflation. We got to get that inflation number down. And when we start seeing that inflation number coming down, the rates will follow.
Mhm.
That's just a matter of time.
Got it.
So these rate hikes are healthy for the economy. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, agreed. Well, good. Well, this is a lot of really good information. And, last weekend I went on this retreat with this American Quarter Horse Association judge for a specific thing. And this woman was amazing. I mean, she had just so much life experience and mentors and situations she's been in and problems that she solved. And she could look at someone riding a horse and in about 20 seconds, she could tell you their whole life story. You know what I mean? Yeah, she's really good. But, that kind of reminds me of working with you or working with me, that we've done this a million times and we have gone over every scenario. And so when you choose somebody to work with that has had life experience, I mean, you can't go to school and get this. You can't watch a YouTube video and figure it out. That you'll be in good hands. So if you have questions, ask them. We'll be happy to answer them for you and get you prepared.
Yes, you can see this is not our first rodeo, right?
Yeah, exactly. Very cute. Very cute. Dad joke. All right. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Megan.
All
See you
right.
next week.
Talk to you
Take care.
soon.